If your marriage feels cold, distant, or touchless, ask yourself, who is carrying the house and who is carrying the excuses? And watch till the end, because what I'm about to say will confront the truth you've been avoiding for years. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. Ecclesiastes 4-9. Carry each other's burdens. Galatians 6-2. Do nothing out of selfish ambition, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Philippians 2-3. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church. Ephesians 5:25. Some marriages don't shatter from betrayal or storms. They crumble quietly, secretly, in the hallway between the kitchen and the bedroom, where one spouse walks alone carrying everything while the other becomes blind to the weight they've placed on someone they promised to love. Not because they're evil, not because they don't care, but because comfort has seduced them into believing someone else will always pick up the pieces. Cold marriages don't become cold by accident. Intimacy doesn't die without witnesses. It dies every time one person wipes the table alone, folds the laundry alone, pays the bills alone, manages the children alone, and goes to bed wondering why they feel more like a caretaker than a partner. And yet inside that exhaustion, something deeper breaks. Desire. Because desire cannot survive where honor is absent. Affection cannot grow where one heart is depleted. Connection cannot thrive when one person is constantly in survival mode inside the very home they are trying to build. Most people don't see this truth because they think intimacy is about the bedroom. But God never designed intimacy to start there. Intimacy begins where responsibility is shared, where love is demonstrated, where sacrifice is visible, where one spouse says, "I see how much you carry, let me carry it with you." But when that doesn't happen, when one person carries 80% of the home and the other carries the justification, resentment forms. Quiet resentment, the kind that moves into the heart like dust settling on untouched furniture. And every time they clean the same room alone, a small part of their hope fades. Every time they ask for help and are ignored, a small part of their trust fractures. Every time they cry in the bathroom because no one notices their exhaustion, the intimacy that once lived in this marriage dies a little more. This is why today's message matters, because many marriages are not failing from lack of prayer, or lack of desire, or lack of faith, but from lack of shared effort. One carries the home, one carries the excuses. And the gap between those two roles becomes a canyon where love falls and is never picked up again. Before we go deeper, I want to open this moment for something sacred. Tell your story in the comments. What part of this describes your home? What burden have you been carrying alone? Let's help each other. Let's advise each other. Let's stop suffering in silence. Comment, Lord, teach us to carry this home together. Like this, so someone else can finally face the truth in their marriage. This is only the beginning, because what comes next will expose the emotional weight one partner carries in silence, and why God never intended for marriage to feel like this. There comes a moment in every marriage where silence becomes louder than words. A moment where the spouse who carries everything, cleaning, cooking, organizing, remembering, planning, realizes that the silence in their heart is no longer peace, but resentment. Not explosive resentment, not screaming, slamming doors, broken plates kind of resentment. No, this is a quieter kind, the kind that grows in the pauses between sentences, the kind that settles into the space between two bodies lying 3 feet apart in the same bed. Because when you carry the home alone, you also begin carrying the emotions alone. You become the manager, the cleaner, the scheduler, the reminder, the caretaker, and little by little, the unrecognized effort becomes invisible labor. Invisible labor becomes emotional fatigue. Emotional fatigue becomes resentment. And resentment becomes distance, physical, emotional, spiritual. Most people never see when it starts. They don't see the moment when folding laundry turns into crying quietly in the hallway. They don't see the moment when cleaning the kitchen becomes a question. Why am I doing this alone again? They don't see the moment when a spouse stops asking for help because asking has become another chore, another emotional responsibility, another exhausting task on a never-ending list. And slowly, something shifts inside the one who carries everything. They become quieter, less affectionate, less playful, less available, less hopeful. Not because they don't love their spouse, but because they feel abandoned by them. This is how intimacy dies without a single argument. This is how marriages drift into coldness without a single moment of betrayal. Because intimacy does not survive neglect, it cannot breathe under the weight of unshared burdens. It cannot flourish in a home where one person is drained and the other is comfortable. And here's the part most couples never admit. The spouse, who does less often, doesn't realize how deep the wound is. They think everything is fine because nothing is exploding. They think silence means peace, when silence actually means the other person is carrying more than they can express. Meanwhile, the spouse who does everything is quietly thinking, if you loved me, you would help me. If you valued me, you would notice. If you cared, you'd carry something with me. But they don't say these words out loud anymore because they're tired of repeating themselves. They're tired of begging. They're tired of explaining the same pain to someone who keeps choosing not to understand it. So they shut down. They grow distant. They protect themselves from further disappointment by withdrawing from the person who was supposed to be their partner. And eventually, distance turns into numbness. This is the resentment we never talk about. The resentment created not by infidelity, not by betrayal, not by dramatic fights, but by the simple refusal to share the load of everyday life. And here is the truth you must face. You cannot feel desire towards someone who makes you feel alone. You cannot feel affection towards someone who turns your exhaustion into their comfort. You cannot feel intimacy with someone who benefits from your suffering. This is why God warns us about selfishness, why He calls us to serve one another, why He reminds us that love is proven through sacrifice, not talk. A marriage where one person serves and the other consumes will always bleed slowly, until one day there is nothing left to give. Before we move deeper into this journey, I want to create another space for healing. Share your experience if you can. How has unbalanced responsibility affected your heart, your home, your intimacy? Let your words help another person who feels unseen tonight. Because this next segment will expose the emotional labor that shapes desire, affection, and connection in ways most couples never realize. There is a kind of labor in marriage that leaves no fingerprints, no stains on the hands, no physical proof, yet it drains the soul more than any chore ever could. It is the emotional labor of remembering everything, holding everything, anticipating everything, fixing everything before it breaks, smoothing tension before it turns into conflict, and carrying the atmosphere of the entire home on your shoulders. And the tragic truth is this: the spouse who carries the emotional weight is almost always the least appreciated, the most exhausted, and the one blamed for being distant when the distance was created by neglect long before their heart shut down. Emotional labor is invisible until it destroys intimacy. It's the constant mental checklist running in the background. Are the kids okay? Did he eat? Did she rest? Who's handling the bills? What do I need to remember tomorrow? Why am I the only one noticing what needs to be done? This mental load becomes a quiet storm inside the heart. Not loud, not dramatic, but constant. And constant pressure breaks even the strongest bridges. This is where desire begins to fade in marriages that once felt full of passion. Because desire cannot coexist with overwhelm. Affection cannot bloom where resentment takes root. Attraction cannot grow where one partner feels like the parent and the other acts like the child. The spouse who carries all the emotional labor often stops initiating anything: conversation, affection, intimacy, because inside their heart something is whispering, I am tired of being everything. I want to be held too. I am tired of being responsible for the whole house. I want someone to think for me, just once. I am tired of caring alone. I want someone to care enough to relieve me. But the spouse who does less often mistakes this quiet withdrawal as rejection, disrespect, coldness. They see the distance but cannot trace the path that led to it. They feel the lack of intimacy but do not understand that intimacy has prerequisites: safety, support, shared effort, shared sacrifice. Emotional labor is not just about responsibilities. It is about feeling like the only adult in the marriage. It is about shouldering the chaos of the home while the other spouse moves freely, unaware of what it costs you. It is about being the one who notices problems first and solves them alone. It is about being the constant stabilizer, the emotional anchor, the one who holds everything together. And here's the part many spouses never admit. You cannot desire someone who exhausts you. You cannot feel close to someone who doesn't lighten your load. You cannot feel connected to someone who treats your sacrifices as routine instead of sacred. Emotional labor shapes the entire atmosphere of intimacy. If one heart is full of resentment, affection becomes forced. If one mind is overloaded, desire becomes numb. If one person feels unseen, they will stop trying to be seen. If one person feels unheard, they will stop speaking. If one person feels unappreciated, they will stop giving freely. And when they stop giving, the marriage begins to starve. This is why some couples sleep inches apart, yet feel miles away. This is why the touch once filled with warmth now feels unfamiliar. This is why conversations feel scripted and shallow. This is why the home feels colder, heavier, more distant with each passing month. Because intimacy is not an event, it is the emotional sum of what happens outside the bedroom. It is built through partnership, through presence, through shared responsibility, through effort that says, I see you, I value you, I will carry this with you. If emotional labor rests on one set of shoulders, the marriage will always lean to one side, and sooner or later, something cracks. Before we continue, take one moment, just one, and reflect. Has your marriage lost connection because one of you is emotionally drowning while the other barely notices the water rising? Because in the next segment, the exhaustion that replaces affection will be exposed in a way most couples have never heard described out loud. There is a moment in marriage when the body stops reaching out, not because the heart no longer cares, but because the weight of exhaustion has pressed down on every place where affection used to live. It's the moment when the spouse who carries too much begins to feel numb, not out of cruelty, but out of survival. When your soul is tired, your hands forget how to reach. When your mind is overloaded, your body forgets how to desire. When your heart is starving, intimacy becomes something you simply can't afford to give. Most couples think intimacy disappears because of arguments, or fading attraction, or shifting seasons of life. But intimacy often dies in the quiet routines when one partner collapses into bed drained, while the other wonders why the spark is gone. The truth is not mysterious. It is painfully simple. You cannot pour affection from an empty heart. Exhaustion is not just physical. It is emotional depletion. It is spiritual heaviness. It is the weight of doing everything alone. It is the feeling of being responsible for the marriage, while the other person relaxes in the comfort you created. And eventually, that weight crushes the part of you that used to reach for connection. Think about how many nights one spouse goes to bed already planning tomorrow's responsibilities. The laundry, the lunches, the appointments, the dishes, the cleaning, the mental lists, the emotional management. Meanwhile, the other spouse walks into the same bedroom unaffected, unaware, untouched by the pressure choking the oxygen out of their partner's desire. When exhaustion lives in the body, affection becomes impossible. When exhaustion lives in the mind, conversations feel like work. When exhaustion lives in the heart, touch feels like an invasion instead of an invitation. Not because the marriage is doomed, but because the responsibility of two people has fallen onto one set of shoulders. This is why some marriages become touchless without a single fight. Because the one doing everything becomes too tired to feel romantic, too overwhelmed to be tender, too ignored to feel wanted, too depleted to initiate anything that requires emotional energy. They are not withholding love, they are running on fumes. And here's the truth. Most couples never speak out loud. You cannot desire someone who lets you drown. You cannot feel affection towards someone who watches you collapse into bed and still expects closeness. You cannot feel warmth towards someone who leaves you alone in the darkness of daily responsibilities and then asks why you're cold. The touch that once brought comfort now feels heavy. The kiss that once felt alive now feels unfamiliar. The closeness that once felt natural now feels undeserved. Because intimacy cannot survive where appreciation is absent. It cannot thrive where exhaustion rules the home. It cannot grow where sacrifice is one-sided. This is not about punishing the other spouse. This is not about withholding affection intentionally. This is the natural outcome of emotional neglect. A tired heart withdraws to protect itself. A tired mind shuts down to preserve what little strength remains. A tired soul closes its doors not out of anger, but out of defense. Some couples misinterpret this distance as rebellion or disrespect. But in reality, it is the body saying, "I cannot give more until someone starts giving with me." It is the heart saying, "I need partnership more than I need passion." It is the soul saying, "I am lonely in my own home." And if you listen closely, beneath the silence of a touchless marriage, you will hear a quiet plea. Help me carry this. See me, value me, fight with me, not against me. Before we move on, I want to invite you once gently to share something personal if you feel led. Has exhaustion stolen your affection? Have you been too tired to offer connection because you've been carrying the entire home alone? Your story might give someone the courage to finally speak their truth. Because the next segment reveals the turning point. The moment a spouse realizes they've been doing everything, and something inside them finally breaks. There is a moment in every unbalanced marriage when the truth finally hits, not softly, not gradually, but like a weight dropping from heaven onto the chest of the one who has been carrying the home alone. It is the moment they look around and realize, "I am the only one holding this together." And once that realization settles in, something breaks inside them that cannot be glued back with empty promises or short apologies. Let all that you do be done in love. 1 Corinthians 16:14. Serve one another humbly in love. Galatians 5:13. It usually happens in the quiet, while picking up clothes that aren't theirs, while clearing a sink full of dishes they didn't dirty, while folding laundry no one thanked them for, while trying to rest but remembering the tasks their spouse forgot again, while wiping away tears in silence because asking for help has turned into begging. And in that quiet moment, something shifts. The heart that once overfunctioned stops. The soul that once gave without question hesitates. The mind that once carried the weight of two finally says, "This is not sustainable." This is the turning point. Not a fight, not an argument, not an explosive moment, but a revelation. I have been living as if I am married, but functioning as if I am alone. What makes this moment devastating is that it's not just physical exhaustion, it's emotional abandonment. It's the realization that the person they love has grown comfortable watching them drown. Not intentionally, not out of cruelty, but because comfort blinds the soul to the suffering of the one who serves. In this turning point, intimacy doesn't just fade, it collapses. Not because they don't want their spouse, but because something deep inside whispers, "You don't protect me. You don't carry with me. You don't see me. You don't choose sacrifice. You don't treat me like a partner. You treat me like a convenience." This is where marriages lose their warmth. Where husbands who once felt cherished now feel invisible. Where wives who once felt adored now feel used. Where partners stop reaching out, stop initiating, stop trying. Not out of anger, but out of depletion, out of grief, out of the pain of realizing they have been loving alone. The turning point is not the end of love. It is the moment love requires truth. It is the moment God puts a mirror in front of the home and says, "Look, something is breaking. Do not ignore this." And in this moment, the spouse who has given too much begins to understand. Love without reciprocity becomes servitude. Service without appreciation becomes imprisonment. Sacrifice without partnership becomes emotional suffocation. Some hear this and ask, why didn't they tell me sooner? But they did. They asked for help. They cried in the kitchen. They explained their exhaustion. They gave signs, clues, hints, pleas. But a comfortable spouse hears discomfort as criticism and turns their partner's pain into an inconvenience. This turning point is sacred because it is the crossroads. Either the marriage wakes up, or it continues, sleepwalking into emotional divorce. If you are hearing this and realizing you may be at that point, or close to it, pause, breathe. Let this truth settle, not as condemnation, but as clarity. Lord, soften our hearts to see the burdens we have ignored. Comment that prayer if it echoes your soul tonight, because accepting the truth is the first step toward rebuilding. And in the next segment, we confront the climax: how imbalance destroys trust, passion, and peace, and why God refuses to bless a home where one heart serves and the other sleeps. There comes a point in an unbalanced marriage where the heart can no longer pretend, where the pain that was once a whisper becomes a storm, where the spouse who carried everything finally sees the full picture. They were never partnered, they were depended on. And this realization cuts deeper than any argument because it exposes a hidden betrayal not of faithfulness, but of responsibility. Love must be sincere, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Romans 12:9. Be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourselves. Romans 12:10. Trust begins to erode the moment one spouse realizes the other chooses comfort over contribution. Passion fades the moment effort becomes one-sided. Peace dies the moment one person becomes the caretaker and the other becomes the beneficiary. Not because either spouse is evil, but because imbalance is a slow-burning fire that eventually consumes everything tender, everything intimate, everything hopeful. You can't build trust when one partner watches the other drown in responsibilities they never share. You can't maintain passion when one spouse is always exhausted. You can't protect peace when the emotional load is carried by one heart alone. This is why marriages break in silence, not through shouting, not through sudden betrayal, but through the steady dripping of unaddressed imbalance, the slow erosion of respect, the quiet death of mutual honor. The spouse who carries everything begins to see the truth clearly. My needs do not matter here. My exhaustion is invisible. My efforts are expected, not appreciated. My pain is minimized. My love is taken for granted. And with that clarity, something foundational collapses. Because trust is not destroyed when someone makes a mistake. It is destroyed when someone repeatedly shows they will not change. Intimacy cannot grow in a marriage where one person must beg for partnership. Connection cannot thrive where one partner believes their time is more valuable. Passion cannot survive where one heart is crushed beneath the weight of neglect. This is the climax not of a story, but of emotional truth. The moment the spouse who has carried too much realizes they are not just doing extra work. They are carrying the marriage itself. They are carrying the peace. They are carrying the household. They are carrying the emotional stability. They are carrying the spiritual atmosphere. And the other spouse is simply living inside the shelter they built. Some husbands feel abandoned because their wives have withdrawn, but never stop to ask why she had to become strong for both of them. Some wives feel unloved because their husbands stopped pursuing them, but never see how years of emotional neglect hardened his heart into survival mode. The marriage becomes a battlefield of unmet needs. One spouse fights alone. The other assumes everything is fine, and the gap between them becomes a canyon too wide for casual affection to cross. This is where people say, "We grew apart. We lost the spark. We don't talk anymore." But none of these are the root. They are symptoms of imbalance, a failure to carry the home together, to honor each other equally, to love with action rather than expectation. And God sees it all. He sees the spouse who never stops serving. He sees the long nights of quiet tears. He sees the frustration hidden behind gentle smiles. He sees the exhaustion mistaken for coldness. And he knows exactly when the heart begins to break. Before we move into the final segment, I want you to reflect on one question, one that many never dare ask out loud. Has the imbalance in your marriage damaged your trust, your passion, your peace? Because whether you are the one carrying too much, or the one who has been carried for far too long, the next part will show how healing begins when responsibility becomes shared again and love becomes something both hearts carry together. If you have made it to this moment, hear me. This is not an accident. Many people quit halfway. Many turn away when truth gets too close, but you didn't. You stayed. You listened. You opened your heart to a painful, necessary, holy light. That alone shows something powerful about you. Your spirit is awake, your heart is courageous, and God is doing something in you right now that many never allow him to do. You are not here by coincidence. You are here because God is touching something deep in your house, in your marriage, in your soul. You are here because he sees you. He sees your tears. He sees your honesty. He sees the weight you've carried and the battles you've fought alone. And he is not finished with you. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. Love one another deeply, from the heart. 1 Peter 1:22. Rebuilding a marriage is not a task for the faint. It is a rebirth, a spiritual awakening. And the fact that you are listening to this moment, this exact breath, this exact truth, means God is stirring something mighty in you. Something that will not only change your home, but change you. Because healing does not begin with the one who caused the imbalance. Healing begins with the one who stands before God with honesty. The one who says, Lord, show me what to do next. Lord, soften both our hearts. Lord, walk with us into something new. Shared responsibility is not just practical, it is holy. It is two souls saying, we will not let darkness divide us. It is two hearts agreeing, we will not keep hurting each other without intention to heal. It is two people choosing to love as Christ loves through sacrifice, tenderness, patience, and daily effort that says, you matter. Your comfort matters. Your rest matters. Your heart matters. And if you are the one who has carried the home alone, hear this. Your strength does not go unnoticed. Your tears do not evaporate unseen. Your exhaustion does not disappear into the air. Heaven has witnessed every moment you held everything together. You are not weak for feeling tired. You are powerful for surviving what would have broken many. And if you are the spouse realizing that you have contributed to the imbalance, this moment is not your shame. This moment is your awakening. Your transformation begins now, because the greatest apology is change, the greatest love is shared effort, and the greatest intimacy begins where humility lives. When two people finally choose to carry the home together, something divine happens. The atmosphere shifts, the burdens lift, the tone of the marriage softens, and intimacy slowly, gently, naturally returns like a sunrise breaking over a long, dark night. If you are still watching, feel this truth in your spirit. God honors those who seek restoration. God strengthens those who choose unity. God rebuilds what exhaustion has broken, and he will walk with you into a new chapter. If both hearts are willing, now breathe. Place your hand on your heart if you can, and let this final prayer settle into your soul. Lord, heal our homes and teach us to love with shared responsibility. Comment that so heaven hears you, and so someone broken in the comments realizes they are not alone. And like this video as an act of faith for your marriage, for your healing, for the next chapter, God is writing in your home. You made it to the end, and because you did, something in your spirit has already shifted. The healing has already begun.